Welcome to the Superintendent's Hangout, where we discuss topics in education, charter schools, life in general, and not necessarily in that order. I'm your host, Dr. Sharetta. Come on in and hang out. In this episode, I was honored and privileged to sit down with Tasreen Khamisa and Tony Hicks. Tasreen is Executive Director of the Tariq Khamisa Foundation, tkf.org online, and Tony Hicks is currently a board member at the foundation. The mission of TKF is to create safer schools and communities through educating and inspiring children in the restorative principles of accountability, compassion, forgiveness, and peacemaking. And in this wide-ranging and moving conversation, we discuss the origins of TKF, which arose from a tragic crime that Tony committed in 1995, where after a tumultuous life and involvement in gangs, Tony murdered Tariq Khamisa, who was at the time a college student working his way through college by working to deliver pizzas. This conversation epitomizes the meaning of true forgiveness, compassion, accountability, and dignity. The emotions and the topics that we discussed are far outside of my ability to summarize them in a preview. All I can say is listen to the wise words from Tasreen and Tony coming out of this conversation. Check out their work online. Consider donating of your time and your resources to this amazing and transformative work. I hope you enjoy and gain as much from this conversation as I did recording it. Welcome, Tony and Tasreen, to the Superintendent's Hangout. It's a real honor and a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought we'd get started with just you sharing your origin story. As Terry Gross would say on NPR, tell me a little bit about yourself. So whoever wants to go first, what's your background and what brings you to this present moment?
Well, thank you for having us here. So my name is Tasreen Khamisa. My professional role is I'm the executive director of the Tariq Khamisa Foundation. So my work at TKF is what's brought me here today. Going back, I have a very personal connection to the Tariq Khamisa Foundation. It was founded in honor of my brother Tariq Khamisa, who we tragically lost in 1995. And our family really founded the organization to honor Tariq. And my brother Tariq was a student at San Diego State University, and he was delivering pizzas part-time while he was going to San Diego State. And in January of 1995, his life was taken by a gang and a gang member named Tony Hicks, who was only 14 years old at the time of this. And my father, Azim Khamisa, really felt that there were victims on both ends of the gun, that Tariq was, yes, a victim of Tony, but Tony was also a victim of society. And he started the foundation in my brother's name to really prevent other families from going through the pain and suffering that our family had gone through, and understood that we lose far too many children either to the grave or to the criminal justice system. Me personally, I was living in Seattle, Washington when this happened. I majored in sociology. I emphasized in juvenile delinquency, even when my brother Tariq was still alive. And so my passion to serve young people goes back a long time. And I always felt that our criminal justice system was a truly failed system. And so when we lost Tariq, and my father started the foundation, my father said, why don't you come here and help us do this work? This is something you've always wanted to do your whole life. And it took me a few years to work through my own healing and my own forgiveness around what happened to my brother. And I was able to join the foundation 3 years after it was founded in 1998. And I joined my father, Azim Khamisa, who started the foundation, and Tony's grandfather, Ples Felix, who was also part of the foundation. So our families really came together in the spirit of forgiveness to start TKF with a very restorative mindset, in that when harm happens, there's many people involved in that harm. There's not only the victim, but also there's the offender or the person that has caused the harm, and there's community. And so when that happens, all three parties have to be healed. And that's really the power and the root of the Tariq Khamisa Foundation. It was really born out of the power of restorative justice. It was born out of the power of forgiveness. It brought two families together to heal within ourselves and to heal community. And all of our work is rooted in healing community. I now have a very special relationship with Tony Hicks. That Tony, who was 14 years old and who was involved in taking my brother's life, the state of California dealt with him in a very punitive way, and it was something our family didn't agree with. Tony became the first 14-year-old in the state of California to be tried as an adult under a new law that had just passed 3 weeks before this tragedy happened. So you can imagine he went down the criminal justice system that I felt my whole life was flawed. He served 24 years of a 25-year life sentence in an adult prison. He went to an adult prison when he was 16 years old, and especially my father felt that that was not okay. And so we supported Tony throughout his incarceration because as an organization and as a family, we truly believe that what we feed grows. And if we're going to feed anger, hatred, resentment, we're going to grow that. But if we can feed love, compassion, forgiveness, we can grow that. And we advocated for Tony's release. He was up for a parole in 2019. We advocated for his release, and we are so happy that he was released, that he's an important part of our family. At a young age of 14, he made a mistake, but that does not have to define his entire life. And we're so happy to have him as part of like the TKF family, as part of the Khamisa family. He's become one of the most important individuals in my life. I call him my soul brother, and he just got voted onto our board of directors, and I truly believe that he has one of the most powerful voices in transformation and powerful voice in changing community and lives.
Thank you for that. We'll circle back to some of the specific work of TKF in a little bit, but thank you for sharing that. Tony?
And way to set the bar.
Yeah, that's a high bar, but I have faith in you.
Oh, no, I always come under her. I'm Tony Hicks. Professionally, I am a plumber. I'm a volunteer and a board member at the Tariq Khamisa Foundation. Of course, you just heard a little bit about my work with the foundation. In 1995, I, along with three friends and gang associates of mine, had conspired to rob Tariq Khamisa. And during that robbery, I murdered him. I was sentenced to 25 to life as an adult when I was 14. Azim Khamisa forgave me for taking his son's life, which was not what I had expected the outcome to be. Once I was incarcerated, I went to New Folsom. I went to Youth Authority for a year, from 14 to 15, and from 15, when I was 16 years old, they transferred me to a maximum security adult prison where I continued to serve my time. I met with Azim when I was 18 years old. He came to visit me while I was incarcerated. We sat down, we had a really great discussion. It was a difficult discussion. While in that conversation, he offered me a job to work with him and my grandfather when I came home with the foundation. At that time, I wasn't as hopeful, or I wasn't as sure that I would ever come home based on the circumstances that I was in and how I kind of saw my life unfolding in my young mind at that time. But I was more. It was more important for me to have the opportunity to provide some level of closure for what I had done to Azim and his family. Basically, that's what the conversation from my standpoint was based on. But I was grateful to receive the offer to work with the foundation. And then, of course, the foundation supported me throughout my time, throughout my incarceration. And as Tasreen talked about, they both came and supported me during my parole hearing, which was a great feat. And I was granted parole after serving 24 years in prison, and I got out in 2019, and I've been working with the foundation pretty consistently ever since I've been home. We were working together while I was incarcerated, but it was in a limited capacity because of my circumstances, it can only be in a limited capacity. Tasreen, in all her brilliance, came up with a myriad of ways for me to interact and be of some assistance to the foundation while I was incarcerated through videos and correspondence. And then ultimately, she set up a blog that kids will write in and ask questions, and then I would respond by letter, and then they'll type it all up and set it on the page. So it's been a great joy to be able to work with them in order to try to help kids not make the same mistakes and same decisions that I made. And I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you, Tony. There are a lot of different directions we could go from both of those introductions. I was wondering if you could share a little bit about how it was when you first heard that Azim had forgiven you and learned about the creation of foundation, because both of those are completely the opposite of what 99.999% of situations like this that you hear about in the media turn out to be, right? People want punitive justice. They want to deliver as much suffering as they can as a sort of a recompense, so to speak. This is 180 degrees in the other direction. How was that? How did you even find out about that, and how did you feel? I mean, you were a young man. You were a kid still when you found that out, right?
Absolutely. I was 14. I was still going through the legal system. I had to be arraigned, then I had to be sent to a special court proceeding. It's a 707 hearing. They don't have them anymore, but the hearing is to determine if a juvenile should be tried in juvenile court or adult court. And I had to go through that process, and that was some months. But I discovered that Azim had forgiven me through my grandfather. He was visiting me while I was in juvenile hall, going through my legal proceedings, and he had explained to me that Azim had forgiven me, and that he didn't hold any ill will towards me. He was hurt, of course, and devastated about what I had done, but he didn't hold any ill will towards me. And he told me that he saw victims at both sides of the gun. How I felt is I was confused, because it wasn't something that I understood. It's not something, that level of insight and compassion was not something that existed in my life previously. Forgiveness is something that is a complicated subject, basically. Revenge and anger is easy. You don't have to give any thought to it. Therefore, you just act out of what you feel. But forgiveness is a muscle that you have to exercise and grow. So it was confusing for me as a 14-year-old and well into my life, into my early adulthood, to kind of make sense of what Azim was feeling and what he was trying to express in this moment of tragedy, basically. So it was very confusing for me, but it did give me it gave me a point of light in my life, basically, that I can kind of look back towards and kind of gradually move towards, that I didn't, because I knew what I was going to be facing while incarcerated, and I knew that I might not, it might get darker before it ever got to a point where I can see light again. But Azim's forgiveness gave me a space to kind of sit and examine myself and examine how I was taught or wasn't taught, and how I looked at my interactions and my interactions with people in that moment and my interactions with people in my past. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm not making a lot of sense in this moment. So can we?
I think I'm understanding from it is that perhaps the way you were raised, the way most of us were raised, wouldn't prepare us for being able to handle someone coming at us with that much authentic forgiveness in their hearts.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, the way I was raised didn't prepare me for that. Absolutely. But the reality also is that you only hear about forgiveness kind of in fairy tale stories.
Right.
You hear about forgiveness and concepts that are kind of removed from who you are as an individual. You hear about the forgiveness of Jesus Christ, or you hear about the forgiveness of Martin Luther King, right, or things of that nature. These are great people who are giants in our minds, but they're kind of removed from who we are. So forgiveness is something that great people can strive towards, but us, the hoi polloi, are kind of trapped with the emotions that we have. Basically, we have to make the best of what we have, and that's just not the case. Like we can strive for something better within ourselves, basically, and that's what Azim showed me in my young years. But I wasn't able to understand it at that time.
Tasreen, so I'm just, I don't know. I've never met your father. I've met him on a YouTube video. I've never met your grandpa, Ples. But were there signs of a real special, unique family and individual? And I mean, to think that you could bring two families into, the Venn diagram of the two families comes together, and where they intersect is like-mindedness. Sure, there were struggles in it too, but like-mindedness around true forgiveness. Growing up, did you see those values in your family? Could you talk about that?
So I have a very spiritual family. So we definitely grew up with religion, with faith. And I think that had a lot to do with the way my father was able to handle the loss of my brother. My father started meditating when he was about 20 years old. And so he always gave as much importance to his spiritual growth than as to his material growth or professional growth, I would say. And so I feel that my father is an evolved man. And when this happened and he got the news that, Tariq had been shot and killed, he really did feel like he kind of went into the arms of God, like he truly believes in God, and really felt like that night that happened, and that he really came back from understanding that there were victims on both ends of the gun, and that Tony was a victim of a society that we have all contributed to, including him. And he was a bit removed from some of the violence that our young people were involved in because it wasn't like forefront in his life. But of course, when something happens to you so personally, you can go on with your life like the same, or you can choose to do something about it. And my father chose to do something about it. And during we're Ismaili Muslims, and so we have a 40-day grieving period. And during that grieving period, one of his mentors said to him, after 40 days, if you continue to grieve Tariq, you will impede his soul's journey. The one thing you can do for Tariq is to do good deeds in his name. And that's truly why my dad decided to start the Tariq Khamisa Foundation, was to do good deeds in his son's name so he could create spiritual currency for my brother's soul journey, and that he would take a rocket into this next journey, because we believe that souls are eternal. And so that was really the essence behind TKF. And because he saw Tony as a victim of society, he said, I take responsibility for that bullet that took my son's life. And it happened with an American child on American soil. And even though our family had come here from Nairobi, Kenya, he was proud of being an American citizen. And he reached out to Pless in forgiveness because he really felt that they both lost sons that night. Tony to the criminal justice system and Tariq to the grave. And we still see that happening in our country all the time. So we must do something about that. And I think they're truly an example of how do we transcend the worst thing that has happened to us? How do we transcend the worst thing that we have done for the greater good? And I think that greater good mindset sometimes really gets lost in this society because we're so much of an eye for an eye, for revenge. Those are those people, not our kids. We do that so much. There's so much of that. But if we truly see each other as community, if we truly see each other as brothers and sisters, we will step in to help. Now, I've learned so much from my father as a role model, for sure. It took me a while to get to this point, like in my journey, in my evolution. But if it wasn't for forgiveness, I don't think I would be here with you today. I don't think that if I hadn't gone through the pain and taken the time to heal and learned about Tony and built empathy and compassion around him and what he had gone through and what led up to that moment where he made that decision, I wouldn't be here today. And for me, I get to honor my brother every day in this work. I get to help change the paths of young people that may be going down a path that is harmful for them and others. And then I also got to have this amazing person in my life, in Tony. And that wouldn't have happened without forgiveness. And I think what Tony said, how when we feel forgiveness is for some of those giants in the world.
Yeah, Gandhi or someone.
Some
right?
of our
yeah.
gurus,
Yeah.
right? I think that, forgiveness is for everybody. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness truly is for everybody, and everybody is capable of forgiveness, because if you continue to hold on to anger and hurt and shame and guilt and resentment, the only person you're hurting is yourself. And when you can forgive and you can let go of those emotions, especially for me, it made a lot of room for love and compassion. And it opened me up to a world I never could imagine. And so we have to remember that when we forgive, we forgive for ourselves. We're not forgiving for the other person. Forgiveness is for yourself. It's something you do for you. You may not be able to have a relationship with the person you're forgiving or the person that harmed you. That should never impede your forgiveness journey, right? If you take that next step, you take that next step. I wanted to take that next step in my life. I wanted to meet Tony. And I'm glad I did. It was the best decision I could have ever made, you know? So I think, yes, my father is a very special man. I'm lucky that, or I feel very blessed that he took this tragedy and created this foundation, and it's given my family purpose. It's given my family a way to serve. It's given my family a way to honor community, and it's given my family a way to hopefully impact lives around us.
Tasreen was just talking about a path, a dangerous path, a path of challenges. And I'd imagine if this happened when you were 14, there's a pre-story to that. Can you share the parts of that you think would be useful for a school community and that has teenagers in it? We wrestle with this a lot, with especially our young men and their what they see in the media that glorifies gang lifestyle, weapons, and everything that comes along with that. What kind of led to that fateful day in January of 94, right? If I have the year right?
95.
95.
Well, there's a lot.
I'm sure. That's a long question. You don't need to do all of it.
Yeah, there's a lot that led to it. I'll try to bring it down a little bit. Well, my full backstory, for the most part, is I was born to a teenage mother. My mother was 14 when she had me. My father was just 16. My father was never really in my life. Both of them were inside of gang culture, basically, and most of my family members at the time in South Central Los Angeles were all inside of gang culture, and that was the norm for my young life. So much so to the point that I thought that was my legacy. Like, it was the mantle that I was to accept at that time. My mother, in her young wisdom, sought to send me out of that culture to her father, who was the best man that she knew at the time. She felt that a woman couldn't raise a man by herself successfully, so she sent me to my grandfather in hopes of giving me a role model of all the things that he is, honest, just an all-around great guy. By the time that I was sent to live with my grandfather, I had developed certain qualities that had kind of hindered me. I wasn't trusting of the love that my grandfather had shown me. I had felt like my mother had abandoned me at the time. I had already felt like my father didn't want anything to do with me. I had dealt with death in my life. A few family members who were gang members at the time had been murdered. I had gone to violent funerals from violent murders at an early stage in my life. So my perspective and my ability to just appreciate what my mother was trying to do for me and what my grandfather was trying to do for me was a little skewed at the time. And while I was out here and going to school, I was not hanging out with the most desirable young men. I made friends with men who were more, young boys who were more like-minded, who were troubled, who were dealing with their own traumas and not dealing with them. I was drinking a lot. I was smoking weed. I wasn't going to school as much as I should have been, and I fell deeper and deeper into this path that I was on. Ultimately, I ended up running away from home, from my grandfather's home. The same night that I ran away from home, I got together with gang friends, and that's when we conspired to rob Tariq, and I ultimately murdered him.
I could imagine, and again, I haven't met your dad and I haven't met your grandpa, but they must both be really remarkable men. I'd imagine there was as much suspicion on your grandpa's side about a family reaching out. I mean, it's ironic, but when people come at you with that level of love and forgiveness, makes you a little suspicious, because it's just not part of the narrative. As you say, it's a fairy tale thing. Mm-hmm. That's not a real life thing. Mm-hmm. So let's, and again, I really appreciate both of you for your candor, and these aren't easy things to talk about. I'm sure you've talked about them a lot because it's part of your work, but that doesn't mean that it's easy to talk about. Let's bring it to the present and the work of the foundation. So Tasreen, you're the executive director. So Tony's technically some percentage of your boss. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
he actually is.
You got that over her in case you said she was overshadowing you, but you have a percentage of her.
I do report to him.
There you go. What are you both most proud of in the work of the foundation? It's been around now for 28 years, almost 30 years. When you get to 3 decades as an organization, that's more than just a flash in the pan. That's legit, long-term, foundational. And what are you most proud of in the foundation's work, either of you?
Personally, in the foundation's work, separate from the foundation's work, I'm most proud of the relationship that I have with Azim and Tasreen. That relationship means a great deal to me, and the fact that we continue to grow it is really a blessing. As it speaks to the relationship, the work that I do with the foundation, I'm most proud of the interaction of the young kids that when we do assemblies, because my thing has always been that I didn't feel my story it's a tragic story, but I didn't feel like it would connect with people. My life story, I didn't feel like it made the same connections, and I also was concerned about, I've grown up in prison. This happened when I was 14. I'm now 42. I was concerned that there would be a disconnect from me speaking to kids about what happened so many years ago, and them looking at me now and seeing that I don't look like the 14-year-old that they seen in the videos. But for the most part, there hasn't been that disconnect at all. Most of the assemblies that we've done, and the talks that we've given, has been well received by young people. It's been well received by everybody that's heard it, and especially in one of the last ones. What was the school when you went? That's when me and Nazim was there, and all the kids came. I think that was Horseman, and all the kids came and rushed the stage. They asked me for my autograph like I was a celebrity, and then they asked me questions that were very pertinent and very relevant questions for them and what they were going through in their life, and it showed me that they made some kind of connection with the story. So that's what I'm most proud of, that we are able to connect with young people and hopefully change the way they view the world and they view themselves in it.
I think, incredibly proud of just being a voice and an advocate for young people. I think oftentimes we turn our backs on our young people when they're struggling the most because of the way they're exhibiting behavior or the way they're challenging the adults in school buildings. And I'm really proud that we're elevating that kind of restorative mindset, and that we have to provide support and love and understanding and tools for young people, because we all want them to thrive. We all want them to go on that path of opportunity, and that their social emotional well-being is the most important thing that we can do for young people in schools. And I understand that the academic piece is so crucial, but if we don't have the social emotional piece integrated into schools, the academics just are going down because of that, you know? And I think lifting that mindset and lifting an understanding of how important it is to give young people the tools and skills they need to process their challenges in life in healthy ways and find pathways in their own healing, it's so critical. I'm most proud of the 28 years we have been doing this work, and running into young people that were on that path of either being truant, not showing up, being absent, those young people that were constantly in the principal's office, ones that we were suspending and expelling, TKF going in there and really helping those young people, it rise them up out of those places, and now see them working in school buildings as teachers, as school counselors, as social workers, giving back. And I think that TKF really promotes this sense of the importance of, as human beings, we have a responsibility to our community. And we have a responsibility to create a better and safer world, and inspiring them to do that and see them then doing that, instead of maybe going down some of those paths of either dropping out of middle school, dropping out of high school, joining a gang, all of those things, you know, engaging in criminal activity. Us realizing that all those young people and that moment in their life, they really just needed love. They really just needed to have grace. They really needed second chances. And I'm most proud of that work. And then I think also just being able to honor Tariq and lift up his spirit. My brother was a very wise soul, and he always felt that you got to leave this world a better place than when you came into it. And, you know, at 10, 11, 12, he would say that, and I would be like, what are you talking about, you know? And I look back to him and I think this was all really meant to be. I truly feel that our families were meant to come together. I truly feel that Tariq and Tony had a big role in spreading this message of love and hope and forgiveness in the world. And I think that all of our work right now is living up to what my brother wanted, trying to leave this world a better place, a safer place, a more peaceful place, a place that's rooted in humanness and human dignity and love and justice. And if we're inspiring a generation to embody that, I'm so proud of that.
So the foundation does assemblies. Tony was talking about that. Could you describe kind of the range of work that the foundation is engaged in, and how folks can find out about it? And I know it, as a nonprofit, there's also the opportunity for people to support the work with donations as well. Could you kind of talk to us about that?
Yeah. So the foundation's mission is to create safer schools by inspiring individuals in the restorative principles of accountability, compassion, forgiveness, and peacemaking. There's 3 main focus areas of the foundation. Our first is our safe school model, which you talked a little bit about with one of our programs, our assemblies. We have 5 programs in that safe school model, and we partner with schools in San Diego County and provide direct services connected to all of those programs. We have, school-based assemblies. We have a restorative curriculum that's taught in classrooms. We have a mentoring program where we place mentors on school campuses. We have a Peace Club program, which is a student leadership advocate program, and then we have a restorative parenting program as well, and that's all under our Safe School model. We also have a training arm to the organization where other states outside of California or outside of San Diego County really wanted our program. So we've expanded through a training model. So we go and we train teams at schools to implement our programs and our philosophy of teaching. So we have about 5 sites in Pennsylvania that we're supporting right now. So we're kind of organically growing in Pennsylvania through a training model. We also do professional development trainings for school faculty around what it is to even have a restorative mindset and what that even means. And we do professional development trainings around forgiveness and healing as well. So that's kind of a training arm of the organization. And then our third arm is our advocacy arm, our peace building arm. And that's really speaking at national conferences or actually helping districts really look at their disciplinary policies, helping schools, I think, understand how those policies need to be challenged, because when we're suspending and expelling our young people, they're 5 times more likely to commit crime. And we've just grown the prison population with that mindset. So how as an organization do we start dismantling some of these systems? How are we looking at some of these inequities just within our schools, and how are we raising a voice and challenging to really look at how can we rewrite those in ways that those kids that we are suspending and expelling, we're actually helping them truly be accountable for their actions. And their discipline, which means to teach, right, is rooted around growth and giving them the support and tools they need to make better choices, but then also supporting them on that journey. And so a lot of our advocacy work is rooted in that. To learn more about TKF, please go to our website at tkf.org. There's a detailed description on all of our programs on there. But we definitely are an organization that does rely on support, individual support, grant support. So if you love what we do, we'd love for you to support us. We also love having just champions in our organization, serving on our board, serving as a volunteer, serving on committees. That's super important for us as an organization as well.
Thank you. And we'll put all that information also in the show notes so listeners can check that out. Tony, what advice do you have for young people who may find themselves in a similar situation to the one that you were in, maybe drawn to the lifestyle that you've described, finding a family or a false family perhaps, but in associations that aren't productive in their lives? What advice do you give those kids?
What I try to say is continuously, because I think the biggest thing that I felt while in that moment, from 9 until 14, is I felt kind of lost or disconnected. Basically, I felt like, all right, this is it. This is what I'm stuck with. Like, my life is pretty much baked. The advice that I tend to give is, like, although things feel difficult, like in the moment, especially when you're young, like things feel difficult, very difficult for you in the moment. Like, my father wasn't there, and you think that that's just like the worst thing in the world, especially if you have kids that have fathers. Or my mother sent me away. You feel like that's the worst thing in the world. But these are only momentary things in your life. Life is a journey. the things that happen to you in those moments don't have to define you. You define you ultimately. So you can still make bad choices or be in bad situations and overcome them or work yourself out of them. But I also talk about how young people, especially young people who feel like they don't have resources to reach out to or people that care about them, they do have resources and they do have people that care about them. They just tend to overlook them because we tend to overlook the things that are right in front of us, like I did with my grandfather and I did with a whole host of people who kind of stood in the gap for me before I murdered Tariq. So I try to tell young people that they do have resources and there is light at the end of the tunnel. They just have to reach out to those resources.
Thank you for that. This question's for both of you. What changes can happen or should happen in perhaps at the policy level, the legislative level, at the law enforcement practices level? We were talking about the youngest individual, certainly at the time, to be sentenced as an adult. Most people would say that 14 is extremely far from being an adult in all regards. That was based on a change in the law that it just happened to impact you. What changes need to happen? And does the foundation, you spoke about an advocacy wing, is that political advocacy as well? Could you talk about that work?
Well, I think that law that Tony was tried under, reversing that law was a good start. Mm-hmm. So I think the understanding that youth under the age of 16 should not be tried as an adult was a good thing that law was reversed. Mm-hmm. And it breaks my heart that Tony had to, go through what he went through. Around, I think, political advocacy work, I know my father, Tariq Khamisa, is doing more of that than the foundation has been doing. For bandwidth reasons, it's been tough for us. We've been really focused around schools and school districts and looking at policies, like I mentioned before, around what are their policies around suspensions and expulsions. What are we suspending and expelling young people for? And when you started to kind of dig into some of that with some of the work that we've done, some of the things that we're suspending and expelling young people for, I just felt were just not fair. And understanding that you're changing the trajectory of a young person's life in an instant, for things around apparel, I would say, or, some things that we were suspending and expelling our young people for. Gum chewing, oftentimes even kids' behavior in classes. For example, if a young person, said something inappropriate, that could also, in that moment, change the trajectory of that kid's life by referring them in that moment, like directly to the principal. And I think our work has really been uplifting a restorative way of engaging with young people instead of a traditional punitive way of dealing with young people. And when a young person is really struggling, the first question should be like, you seem a little off today. What's going on? And how even in that moment when we address the why, we can actually change kids' lives in those moments. We don't understand that how we treat our kids and what we tell them, from the body language we use as adults to the way we deal with them when they've made a mistake, they internalize all of that. And most young people go to a lack of worthiness. I'm bad. I can't do anything right. And that carries them into some really harmful choices they make. And lifting that has been a lot of the foundation's focus. But I know my father does a lot around speaking around the death penalty and why we should not have that anymore, really speaking around integrating a restorative justice model, especially for youth offenders, really lifting up that work around healing all three parties. And that community mindset is a lot of where we're kind of doing the work. I do, sit on the district attorney's community advisory committee. So I think that's been a great way for me to have a voice in that space around how do we have a mindset of really helping when young people mess up, and what can that look like, and how can that be different? So I think some of that work is done there. A lot of our advocacy work is also speaking at national conferences. So how can we put a megaphone to this work in large spaces and get this message out in that way? So we're doing a lot of work, in that space as well. So that's some of, I think, what we're doing around the advocacy work. And I think also being mindful of who are we collaborating with in the space. And that's important, having like community partners and being engaged in that community collaborative space to affect some of that systemic change.
You mentioned the concept of shame, and we had a training in restorative practices actually just yesterday, and the trainer was talking to our staff about this very common practice of having kids look you in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Students caught doing something or allegedly did something, you go, young man, look me in the eye. Look me in the eye. And the fact that they're not looking the teacher in the eye could be due to a whole host of things. Culture being just one of them, right? The way they're taught at home, it could be real deep shame. For a 12-year-old kid to be able to look someone in the eye after they feel deep shame about something, it's hard for adults to do that.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that comes to mind is I see incremental change in California. Students can't be suspended anymore for defiance at certain age ranges. And I think that used to be the catch-all reason that kids were suspended from schools, was defiance. Like kid slams the door too loud on the way out or refuses to get the bathroom pass the way that you told them to get it before they went out to the bathroom. Defiance. Before you know it, that kid's on the fast track to spending a couple days at home. And I'm, in full disclosure, I was suspended a number of times in middle school. And it did zero for me. It did zero. The only thing that I think changed my trajectory, I came from a loving family who was trying their hardest. But what really changed it for me was I had a teacher who, I still remember her, Ann Eaton, rest in peace. She's no longer with us, but she called my house. I found out afterwards she was conspiring with my mom, but she called my house and came and picked me up. I remember my mom hands me the phone, David, this is for you. And I was like, hi, this is Miss Eaton. I'm coming by to pick you up in 15 minutes. And I'm like, I'm a 14-year-old kid, We went to Haagen-Dazs ice cream, most awkward drive for 15 minutes. I'm like, what is going on? But we sat there, had ice cream very calmly, and she goes, what's your plan? Well, you're about to go into high school, so what's your plan? And that moment changed my trajectory. Not a bunch of suspensions. Even though my mom put me to hard labor at home, but still that wasn't changing my behavior. Mm-hmm. And I think we've been operating under a mistaken paradigm.
Yeah. There's no accountability or growth when you just suspend kids because they just get a vacation for 2 or 3 days. I mean, some of them, parents may not make it such a fun vacation, but I think when kids are actually taught to really be accountable for the choice they make and they see the ripple effect of their choices and they see the harm, they get a deeper understanding of what just happened. And they grow in much deeper ways from that, you know? And I think when we do the shaming thing in classrooms, we don't realize how much harm we're causing that child in that moment when we do that. And so I think that raising that is powerful in restorative work, because I think oftentimes we do what we're comfortable with in the moment, and we do what's quick. So when someone messes up, the fastest thing to do is to like make them feel really horrible about themselves. Mm-hmm. But if we are more mindful as adults, if we're more mindful in our interactions with young people, and if our goal is to rise them up, we will take those moments much more to heart. And we will live more in that understanding, empathy, compassion space with young people, even when they challenge you. And when they challenge you and they trigger you, and it triggers you in such deep ways, that's a great moment to look within yourselves and start, I think, as all of us as adults, start doing some of that inner work. Because at the end of the day, we're the adults in those rooms. And our young people's frontal lobes are not even going to be fully developed until they're like 25, right? So I think we have to really understand that they don't have the same reasoning skills as we do. They just don't. And we have to take those moments to, I think, be those mentors and those coaches and the cheerleaders and, you know, the comfort and the understanding. And I think build out those pieces in them where they feel truly supported, even when they mess up, or especially when they mess up, you know. And I think that's what restorative really does. It's not removing the consequence. The consequence is just rooted in accountability. Mm-hmm. And kids gotta, you know, when you do it, you do it. You gotta own it, you know, and you gotta grow from it, and you gotta do better. But there's really supportive ways that we can guide them in that process.
What do your critics say about your work? Because this is revolutionary. And anything revolutionary is going to have critics. Do you ever get the label of being too soft or too permissive? The concept of forgiveness sometimes can be misinterpreted as weakness as well. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who was on this podcast, Jeff Zlotnick from the Dharma Bum Temple here in San Diego, and he does a lot of work around restorative work, but from a Buddhist perspective. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about how kindness and forgiveness are actually the ultimate form of expression of strength. There's nothing weak in it. But when you travel around the country and you go to some states that may have a different perspective, do you ever run into critics who are like, wait a second, you got Tony now on your board, and there's no accountability? Do you ever face those criticisms?
I think the most criticisms like we've come up against has been in schools, because I think sometimes we are pushing against the grain in some of our, you know, in the work, because I think oftentimes it's much quicker and easier to punish and discipline than it is to do this work. Because I think the work that we're doing has to be done with authenticity, it has to be done with integrity, it has to be done with fidelity. And I think sometimes there may be some environments that are not quite ready to truly do that work. And we've just had to be really strong in our beliefs and really strong in the transformation of our programs, and really partner with schools that are ready to make change, that are ready for transformation and are ready to do the work. Not everybody is, and that's okay. But there are a lot of environments in schools that are. And so, and even while we're there, even if we're pushing against the grain, I think that if we stay strong in how we role model this work and we continue to do it with fidelity, the fruits show for sure. We have seen that in the work we do. We've always been an organization that has been committed to going deep and not wide. And so we really partner in very intentional ways with the schools that we work with, and we've seen so much change happening in those buildings, in the language, in the trajectory of these young people, you know? So as we go out and speak and are at conferences together, I know that there has been comments of people that are like, there's no way that we could do that. There's no way that we could, you know, how, you know? But I think I've always had a lot of support around the message, around the greater good of what we're trying to do. And I think it actually has helped individuals see that it's possible for them, that it doesn't have to be a Gandhi. It doesn't have to be a deity. We can all do this for ourselves. So I think I've seen more of it the other way, as kind of a live role model of what could be. And in a lot of ways provides, I think, hope for people, you know? But I know Tony might have had some different experience with that than me.
I haven't received much criticism, not a whole lot of criticism. The main thing I get when I speak to people who don't know about the work that TKF does, and I tell them about it, is the confusion, the same confusion that I had at 14, the disconnect and inability to understand, like, how could this man forgive you for murdering his son? Like, how could you build a relationship with his sister? How could y'all work together in order to try to achieve this? It's just a level of confusion. Up to this point, I haven't felt any kind of blowback from it. Is confusion. I don't think I will be able to do that. Right. But it's also admiration. Mm-hmm. It's also, you guys are doing great work. Like, I really appreciate what's going on. So it's interesting. I think it goes back to what I was saying. Like, people seeing forgiveness as something that other people do, greater people, than what they do, basically. But it gives them ideas. It does the same thing that Azim did for me. It gives them something to look at that is close by, that they can connect to, and hopefully they can kind of pivot back towards when they find themselves in a situation where they have to forgive.
Thank you for that. I have one last question for today, but before that, I wanted to see if there's anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to share, any sentiment, any thoughts that we haven't touched on.
I don't think it's anything that we haven't touched on that I like to share. I wanted to go back to something I think you asked earlier about, I think, like, what can we do? And I personally feel like restorative justice and restorative practice is a phenomenal thing. I don't think it's a cure-all, and I think it's something that should be utilized in schools and in our personal lives, basically. I think that we've tried a punitive approach to these issues since our inception. Like, we've hammered the nail every chance we've gotten, and we still came out with the same result. We're still losing kids, and our kids are still struggling, and they're still in need of something that helps them move towards a future that I'm sure we all want to see our kids get to. And I think restorative justice and restorative practices is a way to do that. I think that the more we teach kids about these principles and these practices, the more they absorb them, and then the more, hopefully, the next generation can come up with different ways and different approaches to deal with the issues that we're dealing with today.
I love the mention as well of restorative parenting.
Absolutely.
If I had $1 for every time we have a situation where a student does something, and the first question out of the parent's mouth of the perpetrator, so to speak, is, Yeah, but what happened to the other kids? They were also involved. And then the other parents go, well, I want you to punish this kid in a way that the whole community can see. And it just goes back and forth, and it's endless. It's an eye for an eye, and there's that cliche about leaves everybody blind. But it's really where we've been for. This is my 30th year in public education, and I haven't seen us be anywhere but eye for an eye, with some flashes of things like the work that you do. And so that's why I'm deeply grateful that that we had the chance to chat today. And I'd been following the work of the foundation on and off from a distance. I've been in San Diego since 1994. So I remember 1995, and so this has just been a really special experience for me, kind of a little bit emotional, and you've made my day, and it's going to help make my weekend. So I really thank you for that. My last question, I asked this of all the guests. So, and I'm going to have this be a joint thing because you guys work together. So you have the chance to have a billboard on the side of the 5 freeway, and you have a chance to put a message on that billboard for motorists to see and notice and remember as they drive by at 65 miles an hour. What does that billboard say? What's the message that the two of you want to get out there to society related to the work that you do?
Wow.
Put you on the spot.
That's a deep question.
And sometimes people are like, could I have 2 or 3 billboards?
Yeah,
like Saquon, like where Saquon's got a few of them, so you can.
So the message can be long.
Yeah. But just a real message to the world about your work.
And I keep thinking like forgiveness is the path to healing would maybe be something that I would put on. I think that if we can all work on our own forgiveness muscles and we can truly heal, hurt people, but healed people heal people. And that might be a second billboard.
There's a second one. And you got 2 already, and Tony hasn't even put one up yet.
That might be 2 of them for me. But I feel there's so much in that healing piece that's so crucial for transformation to happen in this world.
Thank you. Tony?
Billboards. I'm not really very good with slogans, but for me, out of all of this, and you said something about restorative parenting that made this pop into my head, that accountability is key to growth. Like, we have to teach our kids accountability. I think once you get past the point of being ashamed of your actions or what somebody might think of you, and you can kind of own what's in front of you, then that's your first step towards growing into the space that you need to be. So I think accountability leads to growth.
Thank you to both of you, Tony and Tasreen, for your time, your generosity of spirit today. And we're not on video, but for the listeners, it's really uplifting for me to be in a room with 2 people who are smiling and glowing despite the, at times, heaviness of the topic of today. And that's a really special thing. And it speaks to who you are as people and humans. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
This episode is brought to you by McGriff Insurance Services and Senior Vice President Mike Lutosky. For over a century, McGriff has focused on building long-term relationships to deliver innovative insurance solutions. The McGriff name dates back to 1886 and the founding of McGriff, Sables, and Williams. Today, McGriff is part of Truist Insurance Holdings, Inc., one of the top 10 largest insurance brokers in the world. McGriff provides highly consultative risk management and insurance solutions for businesses of all sizes, as well as for personal insurance needs. Coverages available include commercial property and casualty, small business, employee benefits, management liability, personal lines, and much more. Mike Lutowski's expertise is wide-ranging and includes transitioning employers from fully insured to partially self-funded medical, dental, and vision programs, HRA wrap programs, reference-based pricing, healthcare pricing transparency, pharmacy consulting, wellness programs, marketing, implementation, and ongoing management of fully insured benefit plans, and much more. Mike can be reached on his cell phone at 619-925-1731. All proceeds from this sponsorship support the Eric C. Mitchell Scholarship Fund at Albert Einstein Academies. The scholarship benefits graduates who exemplify the outstanding human qualities that define Mr. Mitchell's legacy. Thank you for listening to the Superintendent's Hangout. You can follow me on Twitter at DVS1970. Please be sure to share this show with friends and family on social media and in the real world. Thank you to Brad Bacayal for editing and production assistance, and to Tina Royster for scheduling and logistics. Thanks for hanging out, and have a great day.